Okay, we are going to start with understanding ratio concepts and use ratio reasoning to solve problems. So, what that actually means is the first thing that we need to do is just to understand what a ratio is. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers. You can write a ratio as a fraction, which is going to be at this point a part to part. You can write it using words where you'd say cats, the word two, and dogs. And you can use a colon, which is the two, like they look like two periods, and you can compare. The big deal in writing a ratio is if they say to you the ratio of cats to dogs, then that means you have to list the cats first and the dogs second. If it would have said dogs to cats, in the ratio notation, the dogs would have been listed in the numerator, cats in the denominator. So that's real important to understand. And the other thing to make sure that you understand is you can take the words, for instance, on this. It says, write the following ratio using two other notations. Well, if you look, they're using the word here, TO. So if they're telling you to use two other notations, well, then you better have the other notation, which would be either the colon. Okay, so you could have done this, where you could have said 7. There we go. We could go 7 colon 6. Notice that the 7 is listed first. And then the second way would have been writing it as a fraction. My computer's a little slow, but it would be looking at it as a fraction. And so let me go ahead and get this. And thank you for your patience here. And so the 7 would have been in the numerator, and then the 6 would have been in the denominator. And it's written that way because the 7 is mentioned first. Now, if you look at something like this, it says writing ratios for real world situations. What is the ratio of all marbles to blue marbles? Well, it's a really good idea on your notebook paper. You should be looking and you should say, okay, well, I see that I've got 4 red. Okay, you've got 4 red. And then underneath that, you could say, let's count the blue. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 9 blue. And it's always a good idea to look at what the total would be. And if you take a look here, the total, if you have your 4 red and you've got 9 blue, well, then the total would be, let me get this working here, it's a little bit slow. We'd have 13, okay, 13 total. And that's how you would write this. Now, when they ask you what is the ratio of all marbles to blue marbles, well, then it's really going to be easy because all marbles would be your what? Your 13. So you'd have 13 would be the total, and it would be 13 to the number of blue would be 9. And then what is the ratio of all marbles to red? Well, all marbles, if you look at all marbles, again, it would be 13, and then the red would be 4. So that's how you would write it. And then I have a question here where it says, what percent are blue marbles? I'm going to just move this over because one thing that you always have to remember when you talk about percent, and I put a space there because when you look at per, when you think of the word per, P-E-R, you should always look at a fraction bar. Okay, so I'm going to just go ahead and make a fraction bar there. And so I'm telling you, when you take a look at this, the per, which would be the fraction bar, cent, C-E-N-T, let me see if I can highlight that for you. So the cent, C-E-N-T, means 100. So then you would have your 100 in the denominator. And this is just a little sidebar lesson for you. But the 100 be in the denominator. But it says what percent are blue? Well, obviously the blue, you'd have to look, it would be 9. And so now you have 9 out of 100, or 9. I'm going to try to add on to this video where we had 9 over 100, which is 9 out of 100, which would really just be 9 per cent. But we can take a look at this, and it would be 9 divided by 10 to the second power, because 100 is 10 multiplied by itself 2 times. So if we look at that and we have our 9, and we start out with the 9, and if we look at 9, we should know that the 9, if you have 9, the decimal point is after the 9. So we're going to have 9 with our decimal point. And if we have 9 and it's being divided by 100, you have to say to yourself, how many place values is it getting smaller? And the answer would be 2. That's what your exponent tells you. So I'm going to go ahead and just put a couple of zeros here. And so if I did that, and if I know that this is getting smaller, if it's getting smaller by 2 decimal places, it would be 1, 2. So it would be 0.09, which is 9 hundredths is what we have here. And anything out of 100 would be your percent. So here, if we said what percent are blue marbles, we would have to say it would be 9% are blue. And that's it.